You know, in India, language is so much more than just a way to talk to each other. It's a force that shapes your identity, drives politics, and can even draw the battle lines for what it means to be a nation. It's not just a tool, it's a destiny. So, let's dive in and untangle this incredibly complex and fascinating story.
Okay, to really get a sense of what we're dealing with, just look at this number. The 2011 census found over 1,600 distinct mother tongues spoken across India. That's just staggering. This isn't just a country. It's like a living library of human language. And trying to manage all that diversity, it's one of the biggest political experiments in history, for sure.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the constitutional rulebook that was set up to handle this linguistic maze. Then, we'll see how language literally redrew the map of modern India. After that, we're going to zoom in on some of the biggest flashpoints, the classic North-South divide, and then uncover some hidden complexities in the so-called Hindi heartland. And finally, we'll look ahead to what the future of unity might look like.
Right, so faced with this Tower of Babel, really, India's founders had a monumental job. How do you create a rulebook that holds a nation this diverse together without just erasing all of its unique identities? Well, their solution was this incredibly delicate balancing act, and they baked it right into the Constitution itself.
At the very heart of this policy is something called the 8th Schedule. Now, the best way to think of it is as the VIP list for Indian languages. If your language gets on this list, it means official recognition, it means government money for development, and it means you have a seat at the table in shaping the country's future. It was specifically designed to protect and promote India's major regional languages.
And when you look at the list, it's just incredible. You've got languages spoken by tens of millions of people, like Bengali and Telugu. You've got ancient classical languages like Sanskrit and Tamil. And you even have languages that were added much later because of political movements like Maithili. It actually started with just 14 languages back in 1950 and has since grown to 22. Now this is where things get really interesting, because you can literally see the push and pull right here in the Constitution. On one hand, Article 343 makes Hindi and English the official languages for the central government, but then Article 345 gives states the power to choose their own. And then you have Article 350A, which protects minorities by saying kids should get primary education in their mother tongue, right next to Article 351, which tasks the Union with promoting Hindi. It's a framework built on this fundamental tension between central control and regional freedom.
And that brings us to this number, 38, because this system, it is anything but settled. For a lot of people, the 22 languages on that VIP list just aren't enough. Right now, there are demands for 38 more languages to be added, including huge ones like Bhojpuri and Rajasthani. Each one is fighting for the recognition and the resources that come with it.
Now, this whole constitutional framework, it didn't just stay locked away in some law book. Oh no. It had this massive, earth-shaking consequence. It became the actual blueprint for redrawing the internal map of India, completely transforming the old arbitrary provinces of the British Raj into a federation of linguistic states.
And what's crazy is how fast all of this happened. After some really intense protests and agitations, the government created the States Reorganization Commission in 1953. By 1956, just 3 years later, its recommendations became law, dissolving old colonial boundaries and creating a brand new map where states like Kerala for Malayalam speakers and Karnataka for Kannada speakers were born.
And this is where we see this fascinating, kind of counterintuitive thing happen. A lot of leaders at the time were terrified that creating states based on language would break the country apart. But the exact opposite happened. By giving these regional identities a constitutional home, it actually weakened separatist movements and made the whole federal structure stronger. People could be proudly Tamil or proudly Bengali and proudly Indian all at the same time.
But, and this is a big but, all of this relative harmony has one major exception. We're talking about the most persistent, most flammable fault line in all of India's language politics, and that is the deep-seated tension between the Hindi-speaking North and the states of the South, home to the very distinct Dravidian language family. And honestly, nothing captures the sheer intensity of this conflict better than this quote from Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. It's a direct, unambiguous warning to the central government about what the South sees as Hindi imposition. And that's a feeling with a really long and sometimes pretty violent history in that part of the country.
So what's the fight actually about? Well, at its core, it's a clash over education policy. The national policy, called the three-language formula, says that states that don't speak Hindi should teach 3 languages, their regional one, English, and Hindi.
But Tamil Nadu has fiercely rejected this ever since the 1960s. They stick to their own two-language policy, Tamil for their identity and English for connecting with the rest of the world.
And make no mistake, this is not just some philosophical debate. We're talking about real money. The central government has allegedly held back over $232 million in federal education funds from Tamil Nadu. Why? Because they're conditioning that money on the state following the national three-language policy. So a cultural debate has become a huge battle over federal funding and states' rights.
But here's the thing. If you think this is just a simple North versus South story, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. We're going to drill down into the state of Bihar to show you that even the so-called Hindi heartland is an incredibly complex linguistic battlefield of its own.
Which leads us to ask this pretty provocative question. Is this whole idea of a Hindi heartland, this single unified Hindi-speaking bloc in the North, is it just a myth? A political fiction?
Well, take a look at the data from Bihar. It pretty much blows that myth apart. Yeah, Hindi is the official language, but millions of people speak entirely distinct languages like Bhojpuri, Maithili, and Magahi. Of those three, only Maithili has managed to get on that VIP 8th schedule list. The others, even though they have more speakers than many European countries, are officially just called dialects of Hindi.
And being labeled a dialect isn't just semantics. It has these profound, real-world consequences for millions of people. It means no official government forms in your language. It means no textbooks for your kids to learn in their mother tongue. It means a lack of state funding to support your culture. It's a kind of institutional marginalization that denies millions a real voice in their own government and education.
Okay, so we've seen the tensions, the history, the complexities. The big question is, what's the path forward? How can India strengthen this really unique model of federalism to be more inclusive and, ultimately more unified?
Well, a lot of experts are pointing to a few key steps. First, instead of forcing a rigid three-language formula on everyone, promote real, genuine multilingualism in schools. Second, in states like Bihar, why not grant co-official status to major languages like Bhojpuri? Third, really commit to mother tongue education in those crucial early years, which is what all the cognitive science backs up anyway. And finally, take the politics out of the 8th schedule by creating clear, objective criteria for which languages get included.
And in the end, it all comes back to this one powerful idea. For a democracy like India, language policy is never, ever just about grammar or what words you use. It is fundamentally about power. It's about access, and it's about justice. It decides who gets to fully participate in public life and who gets left out on the margins.
So that leaves us with this final thought, a bit of a paradox, really. This constant negotiation, this friction, all these political battles over language, they are, without a doubt, a massive challenge for India. But maybe, just maybe, the ability to manage this unparalleled diversity, to create unity without forcing everyone to be the same, maybe that isn't India's weakness. Maybe it's its most profound and unique strength in our increasingly connected world.